So today's topic was originally supposed to be cross-gen exclusivity, and whether or not Sony is making the right decision in putting Horizon Forbidden West, Sackboy, and a few other their big PS5 exclusives on the PlayStation 4 as well. But I'm going to save that conversation for tomorrow because today something came up that I found very interesting and I definitely want to talk about. So, Jim Ryan, CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, he's pretty much the guy in charge of the PlayStation brand. Just like how Phil Spencer is in charge of the Xbox brand, Jim Ryan is the guy in charge of PlayStation. And Jim Ryan actually said a few interesting things about the Xbox Series S. And this was an interview he did with a Japanese website called AV Watch. And I'll leave the link to the translated interview in the description, and I will actually read a paragraph from that article to you guys because I found this to be the most interesting part, and I'll read it to you guys right now. One thing that can be said is that if you look at the history of the game business, creating a special, low-priced, reduced-spec console is something that has not had great results in the past. We've considered that option and seen other executives who have attempted this discover how problematic it is. Now, later on in that interview, Jim Ryan went on to say that the reason why these lower specs consoles always fail is because they're not future-proof. They can't last you 5, 6, 7 years because of how underpowered they are, and that consumers want to feel confident that the new box that they buy is going to last them for a really long time. And he's pretty much trying to throw some shade at Xbox, saying that, oh yeah, it's nice that you have a $300 console, but it's not going to last very long. People are not going to want it because the PlayStation 5, even though it's $100 more, it's going to last you at least a few years longer than the Series X. That's what Jim Ryan is trying to pitch. Now, it is worth noting that the only main difference between the Series S and the PlayStation 5 is that the Series S is not capable of 4K. It can only go up to 1440p, but if you look at the actual build of the consoles, they are very similar. Even the Xbox Series S compared to the Series X, they're almost identical in terms of processing power, in terms of graphics processing power. They're very similar. There's not a huge gap between the Series S and the Series X, as well as the PlayStation 5. All these consoles are capable of ray tracing. They're capable of above 60 FPS. They can go up to 120. Now, in practice, is every game going to run at 120 frames per second? Probably not, but that's really the only significant difference between the Series S and the PlayStation 5, besides storage. That's another thing. The PlayStation 5 will have 825 gigabytes of SSD, and the Series S will only have 512 gigs. So that is a significant difference as well, but the main thing is resolution, because you can always upgrade your SSD, and you probably will have to get an external SSD, because 500 gigabytes certainly is enough, but 825 gigabytes is also not enough. So no matter which option you go with, you're going to have to spend extra money on an SSD. There's no way around that. If 1 terabyte is barely enough for last-gen consoles, 825 gigabytes and certainly 500 gigabytes is not enough for next-gen. But as far as the Series S potentially not doing very well because it can't do 4K, I really doubt that the average person cares about that. I mean, sure, at this point, 4K is widely adopted. A lot of people have 4K TVs, and they would like to play games in 4K. But at the same time, it's not like Microsoft is hiding this from the public that the Series S will only do 1440p. They've made it pretty transparent that, yeah, the console will cost less than the other consoles, than the Series X and the PS5, and that's because it will only do 1440p. Like, it's not like Microsoft is hiding that fact. So if consumers really want the 4K experience, they can go with the Series X or the PlayStation 5. I don't see that being a huge deal. Honestly, I think the Series S is going to significantly outsell the Xbox Series X, because we're in a shitty economy right now. You know, people don't have disposable income to just throw $400, $500 at a brand new box, but $300, that might be more friendly for their budget. So I have a feeling that the Series S will be very successful. I think it will count for the majority of Microsoft's success for the next generation. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to outsell the PlayStation 5. I think the PlayStation 5 has a lot of momentum going for it, but as far as Jim Ryan saying that lower spec, lower price consoles don't succeed, that's not entirely accurate historically. The best example I can think of is Nintendo. For crying out loud, the Switch is one of the biggest success stories in modern gaming history, and it's less powerful than the PS4. It came out in 2017, and honestly, it's closer to power to the PlayStation 3 than the PlayStation 4. It's just barely chugging along when it comes to running a lot of these AAA third-party releases like Doom, Witcher, and all these other games. But the thing is, Nintendo makes it up by not only creating an enticing product that people want to play, you know, the whole concept of the Switch being that you can play it on the go, and then you can also play it at home, but it's also the games, the exclusive games that people buy an entire console for. Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart, etc., etc. People don't buy the Switch because the specs are impressive. The Switch is a lower spec, lower price console compared to the PlayStation 5 and Series X. Never mind that. It's a lower spec, lower price console compared to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and it came out 4 years after those consoles. And how about the Wii? In terms of specs, that console was pretty much a recycled GameCube, going up against the powerful PS3 and 360 that were capable of HD. The Wii couldn't even do HD in 2006. Despite that, despite being a lower priced, lower spec console compared to the PS3 and 360, it outsold both of those consoles by a huge margin and is one of the best-selling consoles of all time. Or how about the PlayStation 2? The best-selling console in the history of video games. Sony should know that specs aren't everything, because the PlayStation 2, compared to the Xbox and GameCube, was the least powerful console on the market. Despite that, the PS2 sold 3 times as much as the Xbox and GameCube combined. Sony sold 150 million PS2s, and the Xbox and GameCube sold about 20-25 million units apiece. So do the math. It wasn't even close that generation, but people don't remember that the PS2 was less powerful than the GameCube and the Xbox, and a lot of the multi-platform games at that time ran considerably worse on the PS2 than the other versions. But the PS2 still had no problem kicking ass that generation, despite its limitations. So of all the companies out there, Sony should know that power and specs don't mean everything. And I'm sure Sony deep down is concerned about the Series S. This is just Sony. This is just Jim Ryan doing his job. You think he actually believes the crap that he says? Of course he doesn't. Of course, Sony is actually concerned about the Series S. Sony is concerned that the Series S is going to be successful. And Jim Ryan's just doing his job. He's trying to sell PlayStations. There's no problem with that. But that also means you can't take exactly what he says at face value. He's just trying to downplay the threat of the Series S, not only to the public, but to shareholders and investors. That's the purpose of his job. He's the CEO of PlayStation. Now, a good counterpoint to what I've been saying the past couple minutes regards to the Series S is, what do they have to actually sell consoles besides being cheaper? Because, yeah, the Switch was cheaper, the Wii was cheaper, the PS2 was cheaper, but they all had something that was unique and made people want to buy the console despite being underpowered, right? The Switch, we talked about the hybrid model of it being a handheld and a console in one unit. The Wii had a motion control. The PS2 had a DVD player. So what does Xbox have? Well, the answer to that just might be Game Pass. Parents want to buy their little Jimmy a new console, and they see that Xbox has a service called Game Pass that lets you play over 100 titles for $10 a month. I don't know if that's going to be enough for Microsoft to push ahead of Sony in terms of console sales, but that might be Microsoft's answer to that question. What does the Xbox have that the PlayStation does not? And you can tell Sony is concerned about Game Pass if they're doing this PlayStation Plus collection thing. But still, shots were fired, the console war has begun, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Peace.